when you spent it, dial *156# to access your statement on MTN. We are good together. We there for you everywhere you go.
Son, we are so proud of you for setting up this hospital. I really love those hospital beds and waiting chairs. By the way, did you import them?
No, Dad, I didn't. I actually got them from Kingdom Books and Stationery right here in Ghana.
Wow. We also bought our office supplies, safes, executive desks and chairs from Kingdom, and they gave us expert advice on how to set up our office.
Guys, that makes 3 of us. I also got our sofa and bedroom sets, plus our dining hall furniture for our new home from Kingdom.
Wow, Mom, that makes 4 of us. I usually get my stationery items from Kingdom, and my teacher also mentioned that our classroom furniture was provided by Kingdom.
So there you have it. Whenever you're thinking about setting up an office or acquiring furniture for your home, etc., Kingdom Books and Stationery should be your first point of call. With over 40 years experience in the industry, we stock and supply a wide variety of globally sourced office and home furniture, stationery and equipment. Visit our head office, Osu Akwaje, or our office near the Osu Stadium. We're also in Tema Community 1, opposite Olam SHF, Kumasi KNUST campus, UCC Cape Coast, and now at the Marina Mall, Airport City. Or call us 0302 764101, 764209, or 762792. Visit our website www.kingdomgh.com.
I love radio because when we go on break, the conversations begin to peter out and you begin to know where everyone will stand. So let me say good evening once again to the lady and gentleman with me in studio.
Good evening. Good evening.
Thanks for connecting with us. And I have our friends joining us via Zoom. Good evening, everyone. Okay,
Good
so
evening.
let me begin. Great to have you guys. Let me begin with you, Namata. What's your take on the incidents that you saw? Did you get a chance to watch it or watch the videos of it?
Yes, I did. I watched it from as many angles as I could find. Look, from where I stand, I think there's an issue we have where we get caught up in the sort of politics of propriety. It's not proper to behave like this. You know, we are a democracy that is, you know, sort of like we're a bastion for democracy in the region. You know, we say things like that. But for me, this is almost neither here or there. There are things that we should be ashamed of. There are things to be ashamed of, like the number of people falling below the poverty line, the things that we are seeing, like the failing healthcare system and things like that. So, you know, you look at what happened, and for me, it just reinforces the understanding that these people are not operating in service of the people. What we were seeing is people working to secure power, but not necessarily in the interests of the people. And if we see that, that is where the shame lies. The fact that the people that have been appointed in a system that we have legitimized came into this sort of space and conducted themselves in that manner. So for me, yes, it was not ideal. I mean, it was shocking actually to watch the behavior of these so-called honorables. But at the same time, I think we also need to be very clear on the fact that there are other things that we should be taking more to heart than the misconduct of appointed members of parliament in terms of how they presented themselves.
Elected members of parliament.
Elected members of parliament. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
First,
I struggle. Well, thank you very much. I really struggle to choose words. And I'm really shocked that you actually use the word honourable, because nothing that happened on the inauguration of the 8th Parliament showed any form of vulnerability. To be quite honest, it was, and for lack of better word, a bit thuggerish. And that's what I saw on the day. It was appalling. And you've said a few things regarding poverty, and these are the people that are meant to be making laws that we all have to abide by. So what example did they set on that day? It was very disappointing. Being a Ghanaian, my heart sunk big time, because You've seen other parliaments, other House of Parliaments in other countries, and you always come out and burst out and say very proudly, it will never happen in Ghana. Then again, unfortunately, it will never. But we were very bold because of our upbringing, our culture, our interlinks, our how.
It's like Namata calls it the sense of propriety, that we are very proper people,
Yes.
and we are a bastion of democracy,
Yes.
in the sub-region and even in the continent as a whole.
The Black Star turned his eye on us, on his eyes against us on that day. So we can't be the Black Star of Africa anymore. Can't we?
It's a problem. Prof, you study how parliaments work. Really, is this just a product of the tension out of the slim majority, or, it's just plain shameful and it can't be excused in any way?
Well, thank you very much, and let me say good evening to your listeners. Well, I'll say that for what happened yesterday, it was shameful, condemnable, and we can't accept it. But I'll go back a little bit and come back to what happened yesterday. In terms of parliamentary behavior all around the world, it's noisy. There's a lot of heckling, jeering here and there. So normally here, and here,
Here.
those kinds of things are normal. So for me, when sometimes people are talking about parliamentarians being noisy and rowdy and all that, I laugh and look at it from the other angle. Parliaments all over the world have that kind of behavior. So we've got to a stage where some level of heckling and noise and rowdiness can be accepted. But that's different from what happened yesterday. But the comments from the general public, these are comments that are not peculiar to Ghana. Yep. If you go to the UK, when I was doing my PhD, I did my research on parliamentary discourse. I looked at the UK House of Commons and then the Ghanaian Parliament. So I had the opportunity to follow Prime Minister's question time. And somewhere in 2015, the UK had elections in 2015. And a week or so before, or a day or so before the elections.
That was a Brexit vote.
Yes. Was it a Brexit?
No, the Brexit was
the general.
2016.
That was a general election.
That was a general election. The one.
So there's a program in the UK called BBC Newsbeat. They organized 6 first-time voters and asked them to watch the Prime Minister's question time. And then after that, they asked each of them to use 3 words to describe what they saw. And I have some of them here, 6 of them. The first one is called Kojo. And I thought that Kojo may be a Ghanaian because it's this Kodjo, and that's Kojo, a 23-year-old boy. These were his words. He used the word passion, informative, and gags. The second person, Keisha, 21 years, said it was disrespectful, unpassionate, and football match. Okay. The next person also said, that's Mel, 24 years, said childish, pathetic, old-fashioned. And then the next person, Jody, 23 years, also said pantomime, one-upmanship, and then a cake. Then
When
the
you
last
say one-upmanship, I want to get one up on the other person.
Yeah.
Keep having the last
Exactly.
That's an interesting
That's
way to
it.
put it.
And then Royce, 23 years, also said chaotic, disrespectful, informative. Okay. And then the last one said contrived, point scoring, and opportunity. Now, these were their descriptions. But the worst of all the descriptions came from the Speaker of Parliament. He described the behavior of MPs as being full of, quote, yobbery and public school twittishness, unquote.
And I can assure you that in none of those cases did someone rush at where the speaker is supposed to sit
exactly
and
the
kick a
point.
ballot box.
Exactly the point.
So that should put
So,
in context what's
yeah,
happening here.
Yeah.
Prof, I'll come back to you, but we have our friends joining us via Zoom as well. So let me say good evening to Golda. Golda, how you doing? Right, do I have Ifo?
Hello, yes, you have FO here.
Great. Ifo, so what's our views on what happened in Parliament yesterday?
So I went to bed thinking that this was going to be some boring event and they were just going to close the one parliament and then open the next. And then I woke up to all these rancors. And unfortunately, Carlos Ahinkra is the MP of my constituency. So that was particularly embarrassing because he has already been in the news for quite a few embarrassing situations during the election period. And I particularly found it very, very embarrassing because I don't know if you saw Gabi Ochedaku tweeting just before the incident happened about the American election and saying that this could never happen in Ghana.
Yeah.
And then a few minutes later, it actually happened in Ghana. And I found it very disappointing. Like the second speaker said, it sets a very bad example for people. Like most people would not behave that way, but you know, in every election, we have a few bad nuts who try to snatch ballot boxes and things like that. So if we are trying to dissuade such habits, it's kind of difficult for us to look at people in leadership behaving this way and telling somebody who is snatching the ballot box that it's wrong, because these are people we attach the word honorable to. And it was really a sad day in
Have you seen Mr. Ahinkre's response?
Yes, I did see his response, and I'm kind of a bit disappointed that nobody in his party has come out to distance themselves from that response, saying that he was doing it on behalf of the party.
Yeah.
It's rather disappointing. I've used the word disappointing quite a lot of time, but that's the mildest word I can
But
use.
since he's your MP, let me ask you this, Ifo. Is it not response enough when he says in that statement that he was doing it to give his party the advantage to call for a rerun, and he was disappointed when they did not take advantage of what he did to get the rerun of the election? Is that not response enough when your party does not take advantage of what you think you're doing for them?
No, but it's not response enough. You need to take people need to actually speak up. That's like saying if somebody you know does something disrespectful to another somebody you know, and then you did not comment on it because you realize that it was disrespectful. No, you have to publicly state that, because there's this popular Ghanaian saying that silence means consent. If nobody says anything, then everybody assumes that it's okay to do something like that. And I'm hoping that in a few weeks' time, when Parliament has had more chances to interact, these happenings will be addressed very well, because it's really disappointing. It does not set a good precedent for people who are hoping that our elections are going to be violence-free and who are hoping that we are going to behave properly.
That's one of the things, Ifo, that I want us to come back to a bit later. What action do we all expect Parliament and governments to take going forward about these events? But I'll wrap up this round of questions with Mohammed. Mohammed, you are in Nigeria. How did our brothers on the other side of the border receive this news? What is the impression of Ghana and Nigeria currently? Okay, we seem to have some difficulty in reaching Mohammed. When we have the okay, we will connect with him. But I will come back when I have him. But in the meantime, so this has happened. Foss, you were making a comment about Carlos Ahinkre's response and how it was pathetic. But let's also not isolate what he did, because there were people who kicked ballot boxes, who went into booths.
He very, very, very rightly said he did not set the ball rolling when it comes to that. Others started it. I think there were 4 incidences on that day that basically were borderline criminality, but his was at the dire end of the proceedings, and everybody after the initial brouhaha that had taken place, everybody seems to be a little bit tired. Even presenters presenting were like, "Oh, get over it. Let's just do it and get over it." So that bit was a bit. It was very vivid in people's mind. Hence, everybody's jumping on him. However, I just think that the whole process, from the way they reacted to the clack being the chair right from the get-go, it was uncalled for, because these are the people who are meant to be making laws that we follow, and they were not. This is not from one side. All elected, they were elected parliamentarians at the time because they had not been sworn in. All elected parliamentarians in there, they did one thing, and the bit that gets to me is there are loads of parliamentarians in there that had been in the house for a very long time. And most of these people stood aside and watched some of these proceedings. And a very good Akan adage that says that if an elderly is there and the kids are doing naughty stuff and they don't say anything about it, they're part of their corporates to it. And we have to wake up and smell the cookie, because this is a step we did not expect to go. We've taken this step. And, for example, how do you change this? How do you wipe this? How do you reconcile this?
Should it even be wiped is a question, because
It can't.
No, because there's a school of thought that this should be there as a reminder that this is how low we can sink. And so we should be careful. But I understand I have George with us, joining us from the USA. Hi, George. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm okay, given the circumstances. So tell us how you feel about this.
As a Ghanaian, I feel really terrible. I have colleagues that have chanced on the video, and the level that I have set for Ghana within my organization, some of them that have seen this video have come to me, and it leaves me in basically the feeling for me is just a sunken feeling that people that we have trusted, people that the electorate have trusted to be the cream of the crop, to go in there, to go past laws, could sink this low and commit such an act. That I mean, it's unexcusable. There is nothing we can say here that justifies what they did and how they did it, knowing there are cameras in there. And right now, in this era of social media, these things were going to be picked up globally. That's casting a black eye on the country forever. You cannot get rid of these things. You cannot blot it out. It's part of our history and it's going to continue. So for me as a Ghanaian in the diaspora, this is the lowest I have felt as a Ghanaian.
You and a lot of people, really. Namasa, you had something on your tongue.
Yeah, because I think, earlier on I mentioned the sort of politics of propriety, where we want to sort of present ourselves in a certain way. Now, in the same way that you said that Carlos Ahenkra was not the first to do something wrong on that day, this incident is also not isolated in its happening. So it may be sort of like an extreme point in terms of what we have seen externally, but it is indicative of the level of impunity with which some of these people are willing to operate or able to operate. You see what I'm saying? In that we have seen so many instances over the years. I've only been here for a few years, but I watch some of the things that happen, and you're sitting there going, this is not, a state that is being operated for the people. There is a struggle for power, but this power is not for the people. You know what I'm saying? And I say this very seriously. Look, I mean, you see it a lot where we say, no, we can't present ourselves like this. We are a bastion of democracy and all of that kind of thing. I will say this very honestly because I am Ugandan. That's where my roots are. And we have all seen what is happening in Uganda. And sometimes I watch the goings-on in Ghana and I say, I have watched this film. You see the way people are behaving. And you see it's sort of like the slow increment of impunity with which people are acting. And, in Uganda, we didn't just arrive at dictatorship like that. We didn't wake up in the morning and find ourselves in a situation where we were unable to, to utilize our right to free speech. That didn't happen overnight. it's a slow process. It happens, over time without you, just when you don't act on a small thing here and you don't act on a small thing there, when a right is taken away from you to do certain things. Like if you look at the past year, we at the Economic Fighters League holding a vigil that was legally, we followed the Public Order Act and we notified the police, and then we found ourselves being shot at. You see what I'm saying? Ernesto Yeboah is in the Black Lives Matter vigil. Ernesto Yeboah is in court as we speak over this, and we are being forced to prove ourselves innocent, not to be proven guilty. You see what I'm saying? So what I am saying is that you see these small incremental...
As a culture of high-handedness is what I'm picking, Prof. It looks like this really stems from the winner-takes-all culture, because the conversations that I've been having with experts in the field is that if the night of January 7 passes and you don't have a Speaker of Parliament, you're done. That is it. So do everything you can to make sure you have a Speaker by midnight of the 7th, and then you are good to go. That's the it looks like that's the sort of mindset that these MPs went into Parliament with.
Well, I feel quite disappointed that, they didn't have to come to Parliament, the floor of Parliament, to go through all that chaotic scene or the scenes we saw. Because, the work of Parliament mostly happens at the committee stage, behind closed doors and all that. So if you knew that we had a very a gray situation where we were not too sure about what was going to happen, what did you have to do? Consensus building. They should have spoken, negotiated some of these things before even coming to Parliament on the yesterday, or it was 2 days ago, on the 6th. All right, because my view is that the majority side, the government MPs now. Sorry, the government MPs. I'll use government and opposition MPs, or opposition and opposition MPs. I'll use that. Knowing what was at stake, should have invited the opposition to come for negotiations. And I think that they would have compromised certain things, because, what happened was that the opposition knew that if they pushed the whole thing towards the middle of yesterday, they were going to have their way. And unfortunately, so they planned it, when they came to the floor of Parliament, they went to occupy the government MP side, and then they started all that. So they knew what was at stake. But the government MPs were not smart enough. They were not fast enough to have understood that there was something at stake. So if you are saying that, the president is supposed to be inaugurated at 11 a.m., and therefore you should finish the elections earlier, prepare. You had invited international dignitaries, and so you couldn't forgo that program. What you needed to do was to negotiate. So before you came to the floor of Parliament, you knew exactly what was going to happen. I remember
consensus building should have worked
exactly the
ahead
point.
of it.
I remember when was that? The day the president gave the the State of the Nation address.
It was the 5th, I think.
Muntaka, the honorable MP for Aswasi, was interviewed, and the president had mentioned consensus building. And when he was interviewed, I think by your own station, either TV or Joy News, he said after the voting on December 7th, nobody had invited anybody to talk about anything.
And that was important. And
that was very important.
You see, and I don't want George and Efo and our friends via Zoom to feel so left out. But really, if you think about it, and I think I'll try Mohammed again, whenever the leadership of the House went to meet and came back, it seemed to bring some calm.
Exactly.
All the issues that resulted in one sort of violence or the other, initially was just talk when it was the eligibility of the Asin North MP. They went out, they conferred, they came back. Then
sorry about that. You see, that incident, I was on one of your sister stations. We were monitoring on TV. And when that issue came up about the eligibility of the Asin North MP, I told my co-panelists, I said, this should have happened before they came to the floor of Parliament. They should have negotiated. They should have spoken about it, but not to come to Parliament and raise it like the F2 MP did. Afenyi Markins.
Some also blame the clerk. First, what do you think?
Well, listen, I can't blame the clerk. It's very easy to point a finger at the chairperson, but the chairperson is, in all fairness, the clerk did his job, and he should have been a bit firmer, in my opinion. That's in my opinion. He should have been a bit firmer initially. And he left a little bit of an open statement there when he basically instructed the MP in question that he should deal with that problem. And I thought that was giving them room to actually make loads of noise. I thought that I sat here, I think about 2 weeks ago, we were talking about hung parliament. And I said the importance of hung parliament is to get people to talk behind closed doors and have some form of agreement before they come to the floor.
Yeah.
And that hasn't happened. For example, what Prof said, I can see it hasn't happened from all angles.
Especially what Muntaka was telling us earlier.
They were together on the ex Gracia, though.
There will be.
We need to look at
There
it.
will be.
I hosted.
We need to look
There
at that.
will be on the ex Gracia. There will be on the V8. There will be on the.
And that brings me back to the point again.
That's it.
We're witnessing a struggle for power. It is not a struggle to deal with the people's issues. And so they're always going to be united when it comes to those matters,
of course,
which are serving them.
Exactly. I hosted 2 MPs on the opposing sides on the ex Gracia issue. They were singing the same song.
They will be very happy. They will sing and
let me try and get through to Mohammed in Nigeria if he can hear me. Mohammed, how is all this rubbing you? Am I getting through to Mohammed in Nigeria? Unmute your microphone if it's muted. Okay. Let me rather speak to... Is Mohammed speaking? We can't hear. Okay.
Hello. Yeah?
Great. Yes, we can hear you, Mohammed.
I was back to mute.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been here for a while. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah. Very interesting conversations. Apologies, it's been a terrible network around here. I don't know what's happening. But a quick one. Legislative fracas is not a new thing all over the world, actually. I'm sure for those of us who are in the studio, we understand that these things happen everywhere, whether in developed democracy, nascent democracy like the ones we have in Africa, or developed democracy even in India, the US, and co. But that's not the issue. The issue is why should the MPs be fighting, or what is the cause of the fracas? That is the major issue, I think, that differentiates the nascent democracies and the developed democracies of the world. Like what we witnessed in Ghana 2 days ago, or was it yesterday or so? We want to ask ourselves, why were these MPs fighting? I could hear, I think, a female voice in the studio mentioning the fact that definitely it was not because of the people. It was a personal thing. People just want to grab power for their own personal interest and gains. But if it were the other way around, probably it would have been, say, okay, it's good. These guys are fighting because of they believe they want to impact better the lives of Ghanaians or Nigerians, as the case may be. So be that as it may, the major issue, like you mentioned again, is that, when you have a close call between opposition parties and the party in power in the parliament, then it calls for a whole lot of deliberations behind the scene. Because if you just leave things open, that until when you come into the floor, before you start deliberating, definitely there will be a whole lot more fracas, which I'm sure is the result of what we saw yesterday at the Ghanaian parliament, which often happen here as well too, because this current government, you have a whole lot of close call in Nigeria with the government in power and the opposition parties. Is a very close call. So more often than not, there must be deliberation behind the scenes before they come up to the floor to agree on things or disagree on things. Yeah. But from the standpoint here in Nigeria, it's not really been an issue, probably because of the Capitol case. You know, it's just that has been trending all over the world. That,
in the U.S. election.
what happened in the U.S. Yes, you know, the U.S. election. I think that really covered up what happened in Ghana, because seriously, it never trended here. There was no discussion at all. This morning, the only thing I heard from our TV was the fact that they were trying to say, they were even trying to give credit and kudos to Ghanaians for, you know, coming out to vote during the general election, saying you guys had about 70% voters turnout compared to the 35% in Nigeria. So, not so much mention about.
I'm gonna be glad
the
about
fracas
that,
at the
even though I'm
parliament.
not happy that it has happened at all. But Golda is also with us. Golda, I'm going to walk on thin ice here and say that if we had a strong enough third force, this dichotomy would not result in this.
I have a friend who made a profound statement yesterday, saying that when you throw rubbish away in the morning, it's still there and it's in plain sight for everybody to see. I really don't know if a third force could resolve these very latent but now becoming obvious nature of ours. I suspect that what the third force could have done was to probably reduce the level of the level of feeling that each side had that they owned the majority. It would have reduced that confidence level a bit. But who knows? Maybe the third force might also have been involved in the fracas if at nature this is really how we.
Right, we seem to have a bit of a difficulty getting Golda back, but she was making a point
Daniel.
of how it's about our nature. I hear, is it Ifo or George? I'm hearing trying to get in.
Nah, it's me, George.
Yeah, George, go ahead.
Yeah, just want to say something real quick. I think this whole thing also stems from the fact that the timelines, the hard timelines that we have put on some of these things needs to be looked at. Because again, you do not swear in the parliament the night before and then the next morning you are doing the swearing in of the president. If they had at least 1 week, maybe some of these conversations and collaborations that we are talking about could have happened. But because of those hard timelines, it puts pressure on everybody.
I get you. If we'll go ahead, but it could be that this was always meant to be a formality.
So my theory on this would not have happened if it wasn't a secret ballot. Now, my theory is that there had been discussions in private on how the voting was going to go, and people are under pressure to vote on party lines when somebody's checking their ballots. And when they got to parliament and the opposition insisted on having secret ballots, people were able to vote without the pressure of somebody inspecting who they were voting for. So people voted on who they thought should actually be in that position. And once that pressure was taken away, and once that pressure was taken away, the ruling party must have known that some people in their ranks were going to break from the agreed protocol of voting. So they were very angsty about that. And what I hope is that in future, all parliamentary voting are going to stay very, very secret so that people can vote based on what they actually believe in rather than on the pressures of their party on party lines. Because this was actually for me, in my opinion, the way the voting went was a very good thing. It shows that people are really willing to vote on things they believe in if nobody is putting pressure on them. Once, like I said, but then once the ruling party realized that things were not going to go their way, then the confusion happened. It ended in a bad way, but I feel like the whole idea of voting in a very secret way needs to continue for the sake of the Ghanaian people. We need to take
Do-
away
do-
that
do you
pressure that
feel-
people feel when other their party members are checking who did you vote for. If you
Efo.
didn't vote for that person, yeah.
Therefore, do you then feel the NDC MPs were justified to disrupt the votes? Because the reason they disrupted the votes was that the NPP MPs were initially not having a secret ballot. They were showing their votes before they put them in their ballot box. Do you feel that point was justified?
So I feel like they could have dealt with it in a different way, and I don't know how it would have been handled. I can't say for sure if it would have gone any different. However, my point is that Parliament needs to find a way to make sure that voting in Parliament is a true reflection of voting in the real life. Because people who vote in real on outside Parliament, if they show their ballot papers and say who they voted for, we come out very harshly on them and castigate them for that. So I do not see why that should not apply in Parliament. NDC could have dealt with it better, and I do not know if it would have gone. I can't say for sure that even if they had protested in a different way, it would have gone differently.
If it would have gone,
yeah,
that's a very
but
honest
I think
answer,
that,
I must say.
But I think that yes, but I think that it's a very, very good thing that the MPs were allowed to vote
in a secret manner
without anybody inspecting.
Foss has a question.
You just can't keep that whole secrecy in Parliament, because then what would be the point of having a whip, a chief whip, somebody who politics is ideologies. People come together with the same ideology to follow a cause. So you can't be part of the cause and always be going away from the reason why you are using the support system of that party. Yes, I understand what you're saying, to give people freedom, but people have to listen to their constituents and try and do what will best help or serve those constituents, instead of doing things just to be destructive in Parliament. So the whip, it's very, very important, and they play a very important role in Parliament. So you can't keep having secret ballots with that.
Yeah, but for MPP, you would think that they would understand things like that. Also listening to what their people want, because in the last election they had the issue with the Akwetia MP where people were saying one thing and they forced the decision in a different direction and they lost the seat. They had the same thing with the what was the only independent candidates, the Fomina, yes, they had the same issue. So clearly there are issues on agreement already brewing in there. So if they can't convince their people before, like, you should be sure that even if you go for a secret vote, like, your people are going to vote in a particular way. You should be like, you can't come there and not be sure of your team. That's like,
okay,
this shouldn't have been an issue that because it was a secret vote they lost. That means that they have deeper issues in their party, and this is not that was not the place where they could have solved it. They should have solved it before coming to the
I think that also shows that the NDC did a very good job in canvassing with some of the MPP people for them to believe, because they were
it also shows that the government MPs, the ruling parties, I mean the MPs of the ruling parties didn't do their job well. They didn't deliberate well, because I understand the fact that even if it were a secret ballot, but if they have done their job well,
they would have gotten the votes anyway.
They shouldn't have fears.
Yeah, it won't
like
get to the point of threatening.
like somebody said that the opposition party actually did a better job than the ruling party. Yeah.
Yeah, you drive a hard bargain. A friend of mine actually argues that it's possible that we even had 20 NDC MPs voting for Michael Kwe and 22 NPP MPs voting for Alban Bagbin. It's one way or the, I want us to introduce one element of the conversation that's very important. Anthony Julius has joined us. You are a former SRC aspirant in the University of Ghana, and I dare say you are the future of Ghana's politics. This is how your mentors are behaving. What lessons are you taking?
I think it was rather unfortunate, the things we experienced on the election day in Parliament. And to see that MPs from both sides kicking ballot boxes, snatching ballot papers, and all those things. It's very sad that we witnessed all that. And to the extent that none of them is apologizing for what has happened, makes it even more pathetic. And I'm yet to see any communication from any of the parties, NDC, MPP, condemning the actions of particular members of parliament, Muntaka, Honorable Carlos, who were kicking ballot boxes and snatching ballot papers. I think it's time we call those actions out, even by the political parties themselves. Send clear warnings to them that yes, the game is the game, but there should be certain limits. If you want to win, the job should have been done before you get to the floor. That's what the law was saying. It shouldn't be the point where ballots are counted and then where you see that you are losing, then you start snatching them. There is a secret ballot system. That is what the Constitution says in the events that there are nominations from both sides or that more than one person is nominated. It is not on the floor of Parliament that you are coming to change what the Constitution says about when two people or more people are nominated. So I think it's high time we start playing by the rules and then accept it when we lose at our games. That is how it should be going forward. People will be arguing about the whip system and all, but then the Constitution didn't allow for the whip system in this particular situation. So, yeah, they could have done better.
Yeah, but you know, and I must say I'm very relieved to hear you speak like this. A part of our future, at least, is in safe hands. but
only part of it, though.
Because he's one person, we don't know if he'll be president or he'll just be some deputy minister somewhere.
Only part of it.
Yeah. Look, but you see, this whole idea of the whip system and people having to obey a certain whip, I know it works nicely in more mature democracies where there are certain basics that have been taken care of. But here in Ghana, where you can vote against your constituents' wishes because of the political party, should we be?
No, I don't think it's necessarily about here in Ghana. You know, the whip system started from the UK, the oldest parliament in Ghana. And actually, in the olden days, the whips carried a whip. And when it was time to meet, they went from office to office holding the whip. Sometimes they could whip them.
They could whack you with it.
Do you understand? So that's why they say they whip you into line. So that also means that before you go to the plenary to do anything, you know exactly what you're going to do. As of today, when they are going for the Prime Minister's question time, you know, the government MPs receive text messages and emails about questions they should ask the Prime Minister, so they prepare before they go in there.
Yeah.
So you don't bring a surprise. Then ask a question which the Prime Minister cannot answer. So when they get there, they make sure that the other people get the speaker, catch the speaker's eye, and so they get the opportunity to ask questions so that the Prime Minister is not embarrassed. That is what you should do. And that is the whip system is all about, negotiating issues before coming to the floor of Parliament. And in this case, that's why I said earlier, they didn't do that. And that is very disappointing. They didn't do that. And that is very disappointing. And that is why people got the opportunity to do what they wanted.
I had the pleasure of interviewing the chief whip or the deputy whip of the outgoing parliament, or the 7th parliament, the deputy majority whip, the Honorable Matthew Nyindam. And I asked him this question about secret ballots. Namata, he told me to my face, I haven't been to parliaments before. We will see. Yeah, that is the job of a whip. We will see.
That's there.
Yeah, and it was so clear for him. I actually remember, it's interesting you mentioned the UK example, because I remember during the prorogue era, when Boris Johnson wanted to prorogue parliaments, which was basically close parliaments for a while, he threatened that the Conservative MPs who don't vote for that will have their whip deselected, meaning the party will not support them to run for the next.
Yeah, got rid of 20 people.
Yeah, including Sam Jima.
I remember some. He got rid of Ken Clark. So some very old people in Parliament lost.
They were simply kicked out of Parliament because they refused
to go the way of the whip. And these things do happen. And the whip has been part of parliamentary systems for decades.
Okay, so if we wanted to do a fix of this system, Goda, you haven't been speaking much, so I'm coming to you. if we wanted to begin to fix the system, what actions should we begin to take? And you can also send your messages on 055 1111 997. 055 1111 997. Manuel Cranton is standing by. He'll read them in just a moment. But Golda, what's your remedy?
I've been just that you've gotten in there today. And I was just telling myself before you called on me that what is the solution towards all this? Are we going to just talk about it and go our separate ways? We've got Nigeria in here, we've got Uganda in here, we've got the UK, we've got the youth from the SRC side. I think it's worth putting it out to our own selves that we are slowly descending into the mire, right? We refuse to accept it, but every time events show us factually that we're descending into the chaos that we claim not to be embodying. And if we are not very careful about demanding as the constituents that our parliamentarians are supposed to be representing, they're representing us, we will eventually be dragged down to the bottom of the pit with them. As my partner always says, when they're on the floor, they are addressed not by their individual names, but as honorable member for Fomina, honorable member for Asawaso. They are addressed by the constituency they represent, meaning that on the floor of parliament, it's only about your people, beginning and end, 100%. They've not been doing that for a long time. If we can get more and more of our conversation towards this point, it will benefit all of us. I know that beyond talking, we feel helpless most of the time. But as the media, you are the fourth pillar of democracy. It's not been very smooth for you. But I think more and more citizens will really want to hold hands with the media to see how far and how well we can really push these issues before things get out of hand.
I hope that you'll be one of those citizens, Golda. Okay, she didn't.
You know I always am. I always am, Daniel.
I can't fault you. I can't fault you in that regard at all. Okay, so let me switch up and come. Let me switch up and come back to the matter for her final comments on actions that we can take before we take your social media comments.
Okay. I'm gonna go back to my anthem about the the politics of propriety. We really, really need to address that issue. The fact of it for me is that we are literally just seeing the issues which already exist. I think the word Golda used was latent. The latent issues are now coming to the surface. We are seeing people operating with increasing impunity. We have seen the partisan politics of the nation create a sort of political elite who are literally just resolving their issues to serve themselves. They're playing with power for themselves. So, like she was saying, they're not even addressing themselves by their constituencies. They're it's now a personal thing, And so I think we also have to understand that fact that it's also a class issue. You're looking at this political elite, they're sorting themselves out, and then they come back to you in times when it's time to sort of legitimize their sort of processes, to get you to appoint them again so that they can legitimize what they are doing.
They can continue what they're doing.
And I say this again, using the sort of context of the fact that I am from Uganda. Now, Uganda, we have been sitting under a 35-year dictatorship. 35 years of dictatorship, murder, torture, all that kind of thing. And yet, when you look at the stats of Ghana and Uganda, in many ways, we are at the same point. So what point is there to being a bastion of democracy if the outcomes... Ghana is in worse debt than Uganda. Let me give you that as an example, right? So what is the point of saying that we are a bastion of democracy if those who are here and supposed to sort of maintain that sort of democracy are not actually doing that? And if they're not doing it, and they're only serving their own interests, and they're doing so with impunity, to the extent where a deputy minister stroke MP can be roaming around with COVID and then chewing ballots the next time we see him. And then you have a situation, honestly, or you have, Eric Ofochu killed in Ashaiman, and we're not going to talk about that again. And the outrage is not as large as it is over this. We can't be talking about how we look to the rest of the world. We have to look and see what, identify the rot and address it for what it is, and actually look at how we then serve the people.
It's very difficult to step in when you're speaking because it's so thought-provoking. But time is not your friend when you work on radio. Manuel Cranting is standing by with your messages.
Yes, Daniel, a couple of messages are coming through our WhatsApp console. This one is from Sir Gratis in Tema Community 18 and says, let's be factual in our discourse. Muntake's action was to prevent wrongdoing. So did John Jinapo. But that of Carlos Ahenkra was criminal and unpardonable. This one is from Eche at Akachi and says, Carlos's behavior in Parliament is a supermark representation of what happened in the general election throughout the country. And it says, if the NPP had pushed for a rerun of voting as Mr. Ahenkra wanted them to do, when would they have completed the process for the president to be sworn in? This also says that the whole parliament should be dissolved. Ghana doesn't need parliament anymore. Big shame onto them. They have disgraced Ghana. They are paid for... Now, let me just quickly run you through a few of the messages on Facebook. This one says, the whole world has seen the character... okay. Carlos Ahenkra didn't play well by snatching the ballot papers. How can he say he was doing it for his party? If you want to cause a rerun, it shouldn't be after sorting and counting of one candidate's polls. Daniel?
Thank you very much, Manuel Cranting. And thank you to all of our friends for joining us. Mohammed from Nigeria, Namata from Uganda, Efo Dela, George joined us from the USA, and Julius Anthony is a student at the University of Ghana. Golda as well, wish you were here. Force, it's always great to put a face to the name. Yeah, I don't know, I hope we have you for longer.
I'm sorry.
Unfortunately. Not all wishes.
I just said I'm sorry.
Not all wishes come true. And of course, Prof, you are around, so I hope we see more of you.
Hopefully.
This has been Ghana Connects. My name is Daniel Dadzie. I just want to end with the thought that this parliament is probably the most aware of your power as a voter, because this parliament has probably been most surprised by the election results as far as the parliamentary polls are going on. But your exercise of your franchise does not end democracy. The exercise of democracy continues when they are working. So make your voice heard. Look for your MP's phone number. Send him a text message and say, I voted for you, so speak for me. My name is Daniel Dadzie. Good night.